And I want to make this very clear about this other video that I'm making right now. There's there's a situation that took place yesterday, and I had to call my mother for this. I don't have communication with my mother. I don't know why they don't let me talk to my mother, and it's only her identical twins posing as her. But, you know, I love my mother. I'm very close to them. I have pictures out in my living room, and I can show them to you. But see these photos? It's over here at this desk that I have, and I think it's important for me to make this video because as a photo album that you just saw just a second ago, the maintenance man, they find out silly reasons to come inside the apartment. They just want to come in to sort of play this psychological things because they're working with psychologists or whatever harassing things that they think that they can engage in. Now this guy is behaving sort of like a military soldier, and he's also, you know, pretty built, trying to behave like an MMA fighter. He's came into my apartment and been very disrespectful. When he comes in, he's behaving like he's the ownership and you better do what I tell you to do, and I'm going to keep you in your cage. And he kind of has this sort of vibe and attitude like an intruder. And when he came in yesterday, he came in through the door, and I'm just opened the door wide open. I'm standing behind me, just like walk right in, just do whatever you want and leave. I don't say anything. I've always tried to be respectful. He literally walks, he turns around as I'm right by the door, walks right through, and he stands in front of my mother's photo album, and he does this. And he goes like this, like to, no, I'm in charge, like stay away from them. This guy is threatening me directly with the family pictures of my mother and my brothers. Then he begins to tell me, do you talk to any of them? And he starts like mocking the situation about my brothers and my mother and my deceased father. And I don't say anything, and you know, it's very violating because he knows they're shooting me with electronic devices, and the gay community and transgenders are all plunging themselves at it. And he then walks over next to me to my right, and I'm speaking to him, and when I'm talking to him, he keeps looking at the photos like, oh, do you think you can mess with them? And he's like trying to say that he's in charge of my mother, you know, because my mother's kind of ran over by a forklift. He's acting very threatening. He wants to control the inside drama of the relationship, and he does this by threat. I tell him, and I say, look, you're looking at my family's pictures. Let me show you who they are. Let me tell you who they are. I walk a couple steps with him, and I point, and I say, look, that's my brother right there, going hunting. They just went hunting and killed a deer. That's him eating at church's chicken. He's about, just a little boy, about 3 years old. That's my brother right there, and me, when we're kids standing in front of the yard. We'll have our hands over our shoulders together, posing as the picture. That's my dad who raised me. He's a World War II veteran that spoke to the President of the United States right before 9/11, a few months before that. And that's my mother who raised me, and that's us 3 kids in the family that I grew up in. We're all like 10 years old. Frank is like 12, Julian's like 6, or like a couple months old. And there's a photo of us going to church, or like before or after we went to church. So, and I point to the other photos and explain, and I say, oh, that's my brother Frankie with his daughter. He has an Asian daughter, married to a Filipino, and had some Filipino children, and he's holding a baby, and it was a funny picture. Not funny, but like I know the comedy of what Frankie was like, and I thought it was great. They're family pictures, and I'm there talking, and I feel like somebody's shooting an electronic device at me where I'm stuttering and I can't think and I can't say anything, and he's completely taking advantage of this situation. Now, I want to say this because I don't know what the situation really interprets, but my understanding, I take that as a violent threat toward my mother. That's exactly what I take that as. Now, I don't know who's in charge. I called my mother immediately. I said, do you want me talking to you? Is there someone that's threatening or harassing you? There's a guy that came in and put his hand at me, and he's saying he's in charge of you. Like, he physically, and he's looking to engage because he's stalking me along with his other queers and his gay community members. Now, I just want to say this. They know about the horrors of the rapes that had happened in my family, where there's over 10 of them. And this is how they control it. And there was two other guys that showed up. That maintenance guy that's maintenance at this apartment, and there was another stranger who I'd never seen before that was a vacuum cleaner that cleaned one of the fans and the vents or something like that. And he just kind of walked off, and he just stayed in the bathroom the whole time and just kind of didn't show his face and left. But I wanted to say this and make this very clearly, and he was a blonde-haired white guy. They're playing their white supremacist for King Cooper in the white race. So I want to make this very clear about, I don't know who this guy is threatening me about my mother, and to do something like that in front of someone's family. My mother doesn't want you protecting her or just speaking for her. I will more gladly give you her phone number, and you can sit down and have a conversation, and you can talk about Frankie's rapes, and you can talk about how my mother was raped, because you're so much in charge of maintenance of my mother to get in front of the only family that I have. But I'm not in charge. But I want to make this video very clear. That's how violating the situation is. The time before he came, he looks, and then before he left that yesterday, he goes over and looks at the Mother Teresa photo. And the Mother Teresa photo, and I go, who's that? And I go, that person's not related. That's Mother Teresa. She's just saying, I like her photo because she took care of the dead. She took care of the sick and dying, and had like an orphanage. But I really feel like I can't talk because they're shooting an electronic device at me. And so he sort of played me stupid. And he wants to engage in trouble. He wants to engage in personal dilemma just like anyone else, but he's coming into my apartment. And then he leaves, right? But when he walks out, before he walks out, I tell him I have all these crucifixes because we used to all go to church. And I tell him that one of the photos that I'm speaking of is my sister didn't get a proper burial. And the reason my mother couldn't talk to his daughter was because my mother was being deterred away from her, and she was being hit by the lady that lived there, transgender, abusing her in front of her and threatening her. And and I told her I used to see her walk all the time in a princess outfit, and he's like, oh, white power. I tell you how MMA fighters do. And this piece of shit is just, he's taking a roller coaster, and you can tell he's enjoying it. Like, he's not really listening. He's like, fuck you. Like, that's what he's doing the entire time. Forgive me, Lord. I'm not trying to repeat his evil. And then I tell him, I said, look, I got all these crucifixes because I think we all have souls. And I said, well, I believe in God. And I had that crucifix right over there. I pointed to Jesus' crucifix. It's sitting right over there. I point right at that crucifix, right there. And I'm standing over here when I do it, when I'm standing right next to the picture. I'm standing right next to the picture of Mother Teresa. And I said, I don't know what could happen, in my life, but I like to believe in God, and I believe in God, and I just know that, if I got it all wrong, then I just go in the trash can, because I've had a lot of people threaten my life here, and a lot of places wish me that I have cancer, I'm going to die of cancer, and they want me to die. So, I believe in God, and I said, look, I believe in God, but it's not to say that when my fateful end comes, I wasn't wrong. I was completely wrong, and I was just nothing. I was worthless. I was just trash. I said, well, then I'm just trash. I'm worthless. I'm a worthless dead corpse, and I go into the trash can. And he walks outside, and he looks at me, and he shuts the door, and he looks at me like, I tell you who God is, get rid of your life. So he's containing that idea when he leaves, to contaminate the environment so that your emotions and your mental thought go to a crucifix, and how he says before me, he goes, it's just going to be about how you think of it. And he walks out, and he's engaging. Now, I had already called my mother. I don't know who the psychologist, but I can tell the psychologist is talking to my mother, and I can tell that she has to say some certain things because this guy showed up. So he's a maintenance guy that works here, and he also told me to remove the AC from the window all of a sudden. And we got no letters to tell us ahead of time. I wasn't reporting anything, and he just tells me this. And he's looking at the photos of my family before he leaves. And he goes, I need you to move that AC out of the window. And he's looking over at my parents' photos, against these photos before he walks out. And he goes, yeah. He goes, oh, I gave you that. Okay, well, I need you to take that off. He goes, he said, you could go ahead and take that off, and because I already gave that to you. And he's saying, that's exactly what he said. He goes, you need to take that off, but don't worry about it because I already gave that to you. So I already gave that to you, so you need to take it down right now. So he's looking at my family photos as he's doing this. I don't know what he's engaging with personally against my mother about Frankie's rapes and Julian and my father who raised me. I said my dad was a veteran. I'm being very polite when I'm talking about this, but I can tell there's nothing comfortable about the situation. So he then sort of closes the door and he's playing, let me poison you. Like, you're mine, the place you're in, and I'm going to throw the crucifix and Bob, you worthless piece of trash. That's the attitude he's behaving in. I want to say this, that's just one event. So I emailed the manager that runs this property, and they replied immediately, just, oh yeah, you're supposed to, everyone has to remove. There's still about 4 or 5 units on all the other windows right now. But I took mine off just like I was supposed to. So I didn't get a written letter, nobody told me anything, but like I said, I didn't say anything, so now I just have a fan. There's some double fans here. Has some fans in the windows. Can't have. It's still pretty warm. You still should have probably the AC because still gets about 70 degrees here. So there's no AC unit in the entire apartment. There's only a heater. So these are some of the things that are happening. There is every day, constantly. It's just constant. It's persecution. It's not normal life. I talked about this, I don't know if I made a video about it. About 5 days ago, there was a guy that showed up at Walmart, and he took off his belt, and he started trying to chase me, that he wanted to hit me with a belt. And it was some white piece of trash motherfucker that showed up. Excuse my words. And he was behaving like he wanted to hit me like, I'm going to put you in your cage, you fucking you slave. I'm going to tell you what you're going to do. And he took off his belt, and he was running in front of the entire store. So I don't know who's telling him to do this, or these are personal notes, or whatever it is. But I wanted to make sure that y'all know about how intense it is. And as I was getting frustrated, I got really kind of angry. I didn't say anything, and I just picked up my groceries, and I just and left. And these are the behaviors and disgusting things. Earlier today, when I was on my way to the grocery store, there was a police officer that was walking out of the meat grocery store. And I want to say this very correctly because this gay police officer knew that I was driving by on my bus, and that he makes the engaging threats because he knows he has his faggots doing it for him, his gay community and transgenders. They make the threats. All they're good for is to pull out the gun and shoot me. They're only good to throw me in jail or in a mental hospital. They don't want to help me. Helping me is not something they want to defend or who's right and wrong or justice. None of that. So I want to make that very clear. But in this whole situation, I just brush it off. Father, the Mother, Holy Spirit, I don't know what's going on. Just help me get through the day, and ignore it and walk away. Ignore it and walk away. Don't look. Get away from it. Try not to make anyone angry. Try not to get in anybody's way. Don't do anything sudden that will piss anybody off. And I just go about my way, and that's how I deal with it. But you don't understand how engaging it is when somebody stands in front of your mother and says, he's in charge, in front of my family pictures. And I'm sitting there, and I don't know who this person is, and they want to feel like they want to engage in some sort of violence. That's exactly what I'm talking about. They're after my mother.